few minutes late. It was beautiful weather outside and I was driving around. How about see if I can get y'all out of here? Just to repeat a couple of things. First off, position papers due Tuesday night, the 3rd. Okay, just to repeat that again. On the As You Learn and in the syllabus, test will be October 10th. Okay, Tuesday, October 10th. So a week from Tuesday week, as they say, forever. Okay. All right. So we've been batting around the ideas about channel intensity. And so I'll talk about these a couple of ways. These are the 8 factors that have to do with deciding how much intensity of channel we have. Most of these, or let's just say all of those that you're going to look at, are strategic reasons why. These are reasons to maximize that good old-fashioned return on investment. They have to do with the long-term strategies. What is the best balance? And so in these 8 channel factors, we're going to go through them one at a time. As I've said, I've kind of talked about them casually. Let's talk about it specifically. So factor 1. Go, please. Come on. Thank you. The first is you want to prevent complacency. Sounds kind of strange, but once again, this is a strange business. We're not in the business just being able to produce a product and promotion. We have to work with people and we have to work with issues. The difficulty with this is that if we try to have only a small set of channel members to carry our brand, then intra-brand competition, remember intra-brand competition is the same brand in 2 stores. The intra-brand competition is low and it grants those members substantial power. Now we're going to talk about one of the factors, but we'll say that's a good thing. But we're saying it now is a bad thing. A quasi or quasi-monopoly, whichever one you want to say, in distribution may encourage complacency. There's not the motivation to really dig and go. And you may spur on inadequate performance, especially if somebody's not earned it. And we all know the things that we earn are the things that mean the most to us. So Best Buy bought another electronic store called Future Shop. And Future Shop, instead of converting them to Best Buy outlets, they left them open. Why? So the Best Buy had their own competition. And so competition is a good thing. I really believed Starbucks would really have a good idea if they would come out with a younger, edgier brand, more directed towards your generation. I've always thought that because the truth is, I mean, I'm sure you all go to Starbucks, but the Starbucks core market segment are individuals between the ages of 30 to 50 who make anywhere from 75 to 150,000 a year. That's their core group. Not to say that you're not available as well. I always thought, just come out with a younger, edgier group. And look at it this way. Service supplied is less than the service demanded. Have you noticed we've got a couple of new coffee shops in town now? The reason why is because there's a service that is not being provided. And one of them is, give me a cup of coffee fast. McDonald's, it was so, in 2008, McDonald's said, why don't we upgrade our coffee? It doesn't have to be Starbucks quality, but it can be a good cup of coffee. And that's all I want. And so they brought up a good cup of coffee. And guess what happens is that McDonald's is doing ridiculously well with their coffee. And so you want competition, especially in your downstream partners. You want them to want it as much as you want them to succeed. And so the first factor is give them a reason to go out there punching. So on Tuesday, I talked about the product categories, and this is the second one. Now we're going to talk about these in 2 slides. these have to do with the first of those three, but then also we're going to talk about exclusive distribution as well. So, 3 product categories. Let me also add what are called fast-moving consumer goods, FMCG. If you haven't heard that phrase before, fast-moving consumer goods are exactly what they sound like. Goods, consumer goods that move fast. They turn over rapidly. They tend to be shelf stable. In other words, they can stay on the shelves for a while. And it's not surprising that if you go to a Walmart or you go to Staples, or you go to or Rite Aid, I don't think there's a Rite, CVS, or you go to a Walmart, or you go to a convenience store, you're going to find the same fast-moving consumer goods at all of those locations because, quite simply, people want them. And they're not convenience goods because convenience goods, as I said before, are part of those 3 categories. Convenience goods also are goods that require little or no thought whatsoever. So convenience goods by their nature, you're not going to think about a lot. You already have your decisions made, and you look for peripheral cues like the reds and the greens and the shapes. And those are the ways that you make your choices. So if I'm going to the candy aisle and I see the color orange, what's probably there? Yeah, Reese's, exactly. Okay. There's a reason why those colors are so unique, because you cue on the colors instead of trying to think about it. And so convenience goods are generally displayed in an open counter using your informational cues. That's how you choose them. And so convenience goods everywhere. Shopping goods generally have greater risk. Shopping goods are more expensive. Shopping goods require thought. By their very nature, in order for us to feel like we've made the proper decision, we encourage more than one brand because we want choice. It's as simple as that. All I want is all I want. But I got to see what else is out there because I worry about the opportunity costs that I missed. That's another thing that we want to do when we see more than one brand out there, is that we want to be able to at least say in our own minds, well, I've done my due diligence and I've looked all over the place. So convenience stores are convenience goods are everywhere. Shopping goods prompt comparison of brands and prices. And so those are in stores generally that tend to have a lot of inter-brand competition. And so one store with many brands is better. And so the shopping and specialty goods could be categorized as selective distribution. The manufacturers very carefully select and support appropriate outlets in a trading area. So in a trading area like Boone, and if we're talking about electronics, you've got Electech, which tends to be more selective. You might even call them a niche shop. But then, of course, you've got Walmart. You've got a few other places where you can buy electronics. Generally, though, in the city, it's either Staples, or Walmart. And that's pretty much it. So you have shopping goods, you have specialty items, which require, by a specialty item in this case, we're talking about like home cinema systems, things with a higher degree of complexity, a higher order of cost, and with that higher order of cost, you've got a higher state of risk. This highly selective distribution also is where it pays in when it comes to information search as well. Information becomes almost the key along with this specialty. And so product category is our next one, and this leads into premium or niche position. So I was doing Top Gun last year for Halloween, and I decided I was gonna do Viper. I'm too old. I'm more in Viper than Tom Cruise is wearing. So I was looking for a pair of sunglasses and accidentally I got a real set of Ray-Bans. They're like $140. And it's a specialty item. And so it was shipped unique and all like that. And I'm like, I don't need that. And I went, well, I got them. So I started looking at them. It's like, dang, these are a pretty good set of glasses. I actually ordered a new set of the nose guards for them. You actually, believe it or not, the model number is like right in there. I had to use a magnifying glass to see it, to order it. But I thought, man, that was pretty cool. So, yeah, I look good in them. So, anyway, the premium goods or specialty goods require a premium location because it signals a superior ability for certain people and it justifies a premium price. And I give myself my kids. What the heck? So anyway, high-end brands really combine selective distribution and insistence on a restrictive contracts. So this is why it's kind of an ironic thing. So I'm sure many of you who have ever flown before, when you're on your way out, there's like a watch stand there. So Swatch and so many of the other ones, Rolex, will have high expensive watches in airports. And it's kind of this weird combination of service outputs that people are going for, because they're going for convenience. If you're in the airport, they're individuals with a certain high amount of money. And there's the other thing about being in an airport, especially an international one. What do you get when you're shopping in an international airport? Yeah, duty free. There's no tax. Okay, so that's why you do it. So this is the niche strategy. It's in exclusive distribution. It's a narrow group, but the very nature of its exclusive distribution draws people. So Dr. Albinson, my wife, has started knitting, and we're all getting sweaters for Christmas. And Dr. Albinson is either all or nothing. She's either in with both feet or she cares. And that's mostly the way I am. I'm waiting for her to knit a cover for the trampoline now. But one of the amazing things is there's a store in Blowing Rock that does everything that has to do with knitting and yarn and all like that. And someone who has at least an appreciation for specialty stores, I was very impressed. I mean, I really was. And that's an example of a niche strategy. I mean, certainly the stores in Blowing Rock, the rent has got to be expensive. And these people are doing quite well on that. I'm just amazed. All right. So you position yourself being exclusive. You want to signal those superior abilities by restricting where you can get them. And ultimately what that does is it signals quality. So premium or niche? Influence. This is one of those catch-22s that we have. And this is why you have more than one factor when it comes to determining whether or not you're going to have many partners or few. If you are to name an exclusive dealer in a given trade area, you have granted a protection from competition to one group. It is a form of reward power. Chapter 11 will talk about power. And the reward power is the ability to give benefits and rewards for positive behavior. If it is a large channel with many people out there, as a manufacturer, I don't have control. Once again, this comes back from Tuesday. I can't manipulate things the way I wish. The more partners I have, the less influence I have. You have a large number of channel members, but they may be indifferent. I mean, because if in the general average trade area, they may be picking up some, but if there's so many members out there that are dealing with that, then really you're just dealing with this for the necessity of being able to shop. If one organization represents only a handful, it can offer greater rewards. And so if I limit the number of partners, once again, this comes down to influence. If I limit the number of partners, I can have a greater influence on those individuals, but I'm going to be in trouble now because it's the old saying about putting all your eggs in one basket. I got to think about what I'm doing. All right. This is where contracts are going to be extremely important. When we talk about power and influence, we're going to talk about the importance of contracts as well. So there's a little formula that when we talk about power, and that has to do with dependence. Someone who you depend on is someone who has power. And it can be a rewarding one, or it can be a limiting one. It just depends, of course, on the nature of the relationship. In its most basic form, throw away all the contracts. Distribution requires one side to depend on the other side. And I don't think you should just say downstream reseller to manufacturer. It's a mutual dependence. So this is kind of harking to chapter 11 when it comes up on power. Mutual dependence is a good thing. Mutual dependence is successful, especially when it's unprofitable for either side to exploit each other. The contracts are written in such a way that it is to your advantage to stay in a happy long-term relationship. Boy, it sounds like Dr. Phil. Okay. And so in B2B markets, you'll actually see manufacturers that will voluntarily refrain from maximizing coverage just to maintain a mutual satisfactory balance with everything. And so when you're looking at that balance, and we're talking about whether or not to grant category exclusivity, the answer between that is really it depends on how good the relationship is between them. If a manufacturer sees no beneficial future in dealing with 2 or 3 or more partners, then they're indifferent. But if the manufacturer really wants to invest in it, it means also that the manufacturer has to take some risk. By the very same token, it means that the downstream partners, for their exclusivity, to limit their own inter-brand competition, they're taking a risk as well. And so much of that is going to be on the strength of the brand. Apple only shops. Apple Juice is not an authorized dealer of Apple, yet it goes solely with Apple products and sells reconditioned Apple units. But the brand strength makes it worth it. And so you try to balance that dependence that you have for each other hoping for the best. And you back it up with good contracts. So, opportunity cost, I just used the phrase. Opportunity cost means what I willingly give up in order to have what I have. I don't chase the two birds in the bush because I have one in the hand. But this is also a balance as well. This is a balance because trade areas are not similar. And so I just talked about the trade area of Boone. Now let's talk about the trade area of Hickory. Hickory has 5 counties in it, in and around that area, and there's a total of 350,000 people there. It's an enormous advantage. It's one of the reasons we're there, because there was no major universities servicing Hickory. But it has enormous opportunity. And so if I am a dealer and I'm looking to go to Hickory, where they have so many outlets and so many places to go, then the balance of whether or not I choose just one partner has 2 things that I have to think about. How important is that market area, especially in Western Carolina, and how competitively intensive that area is, and it's enormously intensive. Now, somebody who deals with goods and goes to Hickory, they're going to say, you know what, I'm not going to make a lot of money per unit. Quite simply, instead of just 2 electronics retailers there, there's 3 dozen down there, maybe even more. So my expectation is if I go to Hickory, I'm not going to make a lot of money per unit, but I'm going to sell. And I'm going to sell and I'm going to sell. And is that a bad thing? The answer is no, not really. Okay. And in locations like that, the intro brand competition is huge anyway. So there's the expectation of that. Okay. The downstream partner, they don't want to limit the brands. They've got people coming in all day long. You don't want to limit the number of brands that you have, especially when assortment is what draws people in. And so if I'm doing, oh, by the way, I heard the new electronics store going up in Charlotte. They're doing build PCs, man. It's awesome. They just came out. It's a retail outlet. You can go in, you can choose your NVIDIA 3060s, you can choose your Intel i9s, you can choose your solid state hard drives, and you wait 30 minutes and you build and you put it together and they ship. That was genius, whoever came up with that idea. Okay. So anyway, I just going on about that, but that's the kind of thing you can do in really powerful shopping locations. Okay. So the downstream partner, and here's the other thing. You welcome a store like that because now you got PC buyers coming in. Sure, why not? So the expense comes from limiting the number of trading partners. And so if I'm going in a large area that is very, very high-end retail in terms of the generating the money, I'm not going to limit myself, now, nor is the expectation of the downstream partners that you would anyway. And so a lot of reasons why you don't. Transaction cost. Remember the 9-channel functions. Remember also physical possession and ownership, which also includes shipping and also storage at the same time. What if your units are big? What if your units are extensive? What if your units are refrigerated? They require special placing. I talked about this Coors beer before 1980 never went west of the Mississippi River because Coors beer was cold filtered and is never supposed to be heated. And so it meant that physical locations didn't simply exist until after the 80s. Well, transaction costs, if it comes down to you being able to make money, is not an unreasonable thing to worry about. if I can satisfy all the channel functions with one master distributor, a master distributor, by the way, we'll talk about this when we talk about warehousing. Okay. Oops, excuse me. Wholesale. Sorry. A master distributor is a super wholesaler. It is a corporation that has enormous amounts of money. Generally, they specialize on one thing, refrigeration equipment. Just imagine what it costs just for the equipment and the expertise to be able to hook up all of that refrigeration equipment. It's enormous. And so if I'm a maker of refrigerating equipment and I'm out there trying to come up with multiple wholesalers who are going to be able to stack my product, each one of those is a cost. But I could go with just one master distributor who focuses on that, who achieves all of the advantages through the economies of scale, serves the exact same clientele, and it drops my cost. The rationale is it cuts my cost because I deal with fewer people. And dealing with the fewer people doesn't necessarily affect the mission of being able to provide for the consumers. You get the economies of scale. You get to ship in bulk. You have a full truck instead of half of the truck. You ship more often, which actually does increase the economies of scale. It leads to lower transaction costs per partner. And here's the difficulty. Once again, we're talking about that opportunity cost. What am I giving up by putting all my eggs in one basket? See, there's never a perfect answer, folks. You know, a lot of this just comes down to good common sense and spending time thinking these things out. And don't ever think, once again, remember this, is that channels is a process. It's not a destination. And so one answer that happens today, which is great, may be a lousy idea tomorrow. So these are all of the major factors. And then the last one has to be other strategies or other reasons why. Probably one of the bigger ones is brand building. Warby Parker came out and had a brilliant idea when they started marketing. Was they had one purpose in mind. They weren't trying to sell as many glasses when they came out. They were out there to achieve recognition. They were fighting against some pretty heavy hitters. And so what their job was and their function was is to spend every moment dedicated to raising the brand. And that's what many, especially new businesses now, when I look on TV and look at the marketing efforts, that's really what they're doing. The purpose is to bring up the brand. Because what happens when your brand is strong and you're undefeated? If you're like Coke, your downstream members are very happy to tolerate a lot of intra-brand competition because you know what? Everybody's making money. Apple makes so much money, they don't care about an apple juice. They can be as many partners out there as they want. Not only that, but it encourages individuals to continue to use Apple products. So whatever intra-brand competition out there is great. Of course, there is no such thing with, well, there is no inter-brand competition when it comes to Apple because Apple swims in what's known as a blue ocean strategy. Apple, in its basic function, says we live in our own ocean. It's called the blue ocean strategy, and nobody swims with us, which they don't. That's why they can charge 35% more, or 35% margin on their machines when Dells and all the rest are doing 6 to 7. It's expensive. It's effective for fast-moving consumer goods. Once again, it's generating the churn. just remember this is that, especially if it's fast mover consumer goods, usually there's very low involvement. I want to buy a stapler. Oh, swing line or boss stitch. Who cares? I need to staple papers. I need lined paper. Oh, well, do you want to go with warehouse? I just need paper. Okay. So it's not really a brand switching kind of thing, but the brand identification is pretty high up there. And so these are the reasons, and these are the ways that you consider, with so many choices, how to decide ultimately how intense you want to go. What is the perfect answer? The perfect answer comes down to a combination of the type of products you sell, what categories they're in, the trade areas that you're working in, the manufacturers themselves and the trading partners. And there's no magic formula. It's all up here. It's all in our choices. And once again, because this is a process, it doesn't mean that everything stays fixed forever. But once again, channels is the most expensive, so it better be a pretty darn good choice. That's it for today. Go out and enjoy an